Thank you for coming back and tuning in, joining us again. So, as we dialogue, the first half of the show was about pen pals and having foreign student exchange programs within the schools. This second half of the segment, I would like to talk about how schools are progressing with having students get to know each other outside of their comfort zones. And what I mean by that is, are the schools that our children attend promoting the ability for each individual to get to know someone outside of whom they're used to associating with? And it's on my mind because I can recall when I grew up, as many of you may know, I lived in subsidized housing, Hilltop, Ellicott City, Maryland. With that being said, there was, um, both black and white folks that lived amongst each other. And to this day, we recognize each other as family because most of us lived together years upon years together, and our families also went back generations together. And as we left from that small community to go to school, fortunately, we blended with children who were from other economic backgrounds than we were from. So quite often, we would have friends who lived outside of the neighborhood, whereby we had exposure to other ways of living. This helped to melt prejudices, it helped to broaden ignorances, and again, formed bonds with folks who, as we encounter upon reunions or just an everyday errands or, experiences, that we feel more like family than what I feel is going on today in certain areas. It's a beautiful thing to love and uphold your culture. However, it's also a beautiful thing to get to know people from other cultures as well. I feel sometimes with all the commotion going on in society, people are reluctant to kind of talk to one another. We're not autons where we just walk by and don't acknowledge another human being. If you are living like that, without judgment, you're going in the wrong direction. I say this strongly because there are groups of people who have been able to build very successful communities within the United States who are from other countries, yet and still they're not open to having various Americans included in their communities. I find it to be frustrating. I also find it to be disrespectful because you're asking to be accepted, but you're not accepting of others. The math ain't mathing, folks. One of the things I truly enjoyed about going to Mount Hebron High School was that we did have folks of various cultures, not just black, not just white. We had Asian, we had Latinos, we had Middle Eastern folks. They're also considered as Asian culture as well. What I'm trying to get at is it was diversity. You know, um, I had a group of friends where you might find some of us were brown mixed in with Caucasians, mixed in with Indians. I knew of Indian folks, Hindus, who got along with Pakistanians. Some of you know where I'm going with that, right? So, what I'm asking is, how open are you? Are you one who just, kind of play it safe and stick within your own, quote unquote? Or are you one who ventures out and able to make dialogue, no matter how small it may be, with others who don't look like you or come from where you're from? I've found by having friends from various backgrounds to be very exciting. We exchange recipes. We share commonalities about wanting our children to be healthy. And when we get into profound dialogue, we find that histories are very similar. And I'm talking every ethnicity background. You always have one group trying to oppose or suppress another. It's wicked. To alienate others because of shallow differences based upon appearances is wicked. I learned in high school that some of the most worst dressed students were the most wealthiest students. Some of the most roughest students were some of the most hurting students. And some of the most popular students were the students who felt loneliest the most. We gotta get to the point, folks, where we can, on the most minute level, bring people together. Starting when folks are, babies. I'm talking about preschool. Because this is how deep it is. Some preschoolers are discriminated against due to family background, whether it be status. It could also be race. Could be connections. I would like to say that we are strong enough as a nation to overcome barriers that prevent us from getting to know each other. Everyone should be able to choose who they'd like to be able to be friends with or who they'd like to get to know without feeling ostracized by folks who look like them. There's so much going on in the world today, especially when it comes to our children, where we need to bond together stronger to keep them protected so that they can have a beautiful world to live in. It's not impossible. It is not impossible. I know many of folk may think, well, no, because this one says that they're better because they go to this private school, and in this private school, we're not allowed to really talk to people who don't make as much money as our parents. There's schools in Howard County that do not want certain students to be allowed in their schools because they feel that it will pollute their children. I guess pollute their children's ability to learn. I mean, their children already have the best based on the standards that, most schools have. I'm not going to call out any in particular, but, if you live in Howard County, you can pretty much know or relate to what I'm saying. I mean, just a few years back, we had some ruckus going on taking place because there were parents in certain areas that just did not want boundary lines to be changed because less affluent students would have been attending their districts. Come on, y'all. Children need to learn. Well, you may ask, why do children need to learn? They are doing fine if they just stay within their little private schools, within the group of religion, with others that believe like them and or look like them. Well, one of the reasons why I find that hogwash is because someone may be of the same religious background does not mean they have the same heart. As we already know, that just because you have the same color skin definitely does not mean you have the same heart. I want to be around folks who share the same heart. And that heart is for folks to be able to get along respectfully by appreciating each other's existence, starting with the children, being able to get to know one another without any inhibitions because of parents' fear of the way someone looks. And that even includes people with disabilities. People who may have one arm, one leg. To be honest with you all, I used to be very frightened of handicapped students when I was in elementary school. My ignorance had me truly under the belief that if I got too close, whatever their disability was would rub off them onto me. The mind of the youth is very impressionable. And sometimes we have no idea what the youth have impressions about. Especially when they're not able to get to know one another. Or if they're forced to just stick with your own. I want you to let me know if I'm talking sense out here, if I'm just rambling. Quite often when I start speaking like this, people think I'm on a tangent. Some people, not all, some people. I just want to know, what more can we do to reverse what's happening now in society with all the hatred that's, taken away the joy from a lot of young people being just that. Young people. Today's young people have so much responsibility upon them. Sometimes they just cannot enjoy simply being children. I know, it's an old subject matter. Centuries old. But yet and still it's still an issue in 2025. So, what I'd like to happen, especially within this arena, is for the adults to dialogue with their children. And when I say that your children, I don't mean just your blood-related children. I mean children that you encounter, whether it's your neighbors, youth in your religious communities, talk to the young people. You'd find that most of the time they're well aware and they truly have answers for what we grown-ups can't seem to get right for whatever the reason is. And I also believe that they would probably say they'd rather get along with each other more than be at war, or not liking one another, or kind of standing back, knowing that they like what somebody else has on, or their looks in general, but afraid to say anything, and then look away in hesitation if their eyes happen to meet. I'm not saying everybody has to be extroverted. And I know in this world we gotta be more trusting and not, just green and, everybody's cool. But let's try to, like I said, get back to those days where pen pals are fun, they're enjoyable. Getting to know people outside of where we grow up. Getting to know people who look different. So that we can start building this nation up. You know what I'm saying? We're only as strong as the roots of this nation is. It doesn't go like this, right? A tree grows like this. We can do it. We have to lead by example, and we have to not be arrogant when it comes to the youth letting us know their true feelings. We're in a different age and time now from when we were growing up, and, we had to be quiet when we were talked to, spoken to, be seen and not heard. Try saying that to some of these teenagers nowadays. Blind obedience is not bliss. Ignorance isn't bliss. We're stronger and we're better than that. Even if the leaders, political leaders, powers that be, whatever you want to call them, the elitist, even if they don't know how to exhibit that behavior, we everyday people can show them how to be. Because our future starts with our youth, with our young people. So, with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. It's truly been my pleasure this evening. I am looking forward to announcing the name of my podcast during the next show. And in the meantime, I'd like to reflect upon the words of a radio show host from back in the 80s. I do not remember his name right now. I'm going to have to do some research. He was on 88.9, which is WEAA-FM, Morgan State University. He would conclude his program by saying, "Rise up, my people, for you are mighty." That may not be an actual quote. I might have misquoted, but y'all know what I'm saying. Peace and blessings. Until the next time. Be safe out there.